This week, we talk about HP's SSD problems, Xbox source code getting leaked, changes in YouTube content, and more, as we, together, as a people, check it out. Welcome to a wonderful Saturday. I'm Mike, and this is Mike Texts It Out, where I bring you the tech news every week. So, usually I start with a bad joke, but this week, I'm going to open up with something a little bit more serious. I want to talk about COVID-19 because I haven't really addressed it on this channel or in these videos at all. So, a few weeks ago, when these stories started coming out, like GDC getting canceled and E3 getting canceled, I did mention it, and there's been a few other times where I've mentioned it during videos, but it's kind of waned off the last couple of weeks, and that's been intentional because I feel like almost every story that I look at is about the coronavirus, just to be honest about it. And I feel like, I'm seeing enough coronavirus news. I'm sure, we're all aware of the situation. A lot of people are stuck in their homes right now, so I just haven't been choosing to focus on those stories as much. I've been kind of looking for the stories that have been forgotten. So I hope that everybody is doing well, following procedures, washing your hands, social distancing, etc., etc. You know what the drill is. You know the drill and the deal. All right? You know the whole thing. So that's why there's been less talk. And I still will talk about stories that are maybe a result of what's going on, but that just hasn't been my focus. Because initially when I started talking about it, I didn't think it was going to get to this point. And now that we're kind of here, I'm personally kind of tired of hearing about it. I know you are. Anyway, let's go ahead and hop into our first story about HP Enterprise. That's the business side of HP. There is a flaw with some of their hard drives, which may cause them to just brick after 40,000 hours of use. Unless, there's a caveat, unless the companies that have these hard drives update the firmware. But if they don't, then they're just going to be dead after 40,000 hours because of some kind of firmware flaw. Now, the issue with this is, and Engadget mentioned it in their article, a lot of them might be using this in a NAS. And NAS, you might have 40, hundreds of thousands, maybe not hundreds of thousands, but 40 to 100, even more hard drives, if they have an SSD NAS, and a lot of the times they're all installed at the same time and they're going to be the same capacity, most likely. So if a company bought 50 of these hard drives and installed them at the same time, and they're all going to brick after 40,000 hours, that means most likely the whole NAS is probably going to fail around the same time. So it's fine if a couple drives fail in a NAS because the information is going to be backed up by the other drives that are in there. But if the whole thing fails, then that company could lose all of its data. So it's a pretty serious situation. So hopefully these companies that are affected, hopefully they know that they have these drives and they're able to implement the firmware update. It's still going to suck for them because that's still going to be downtime. They're going to have to take their server down to implement the firmware update. And everybody knows in business, time is money. Look at that. Each second that just clocks by, that's money. Thousands of dollars gone. Like I said, it's not a big deal to consumers at all because I highly doubt that many, if any, consumers will have these SSDs because they're enterprise only, but it's still a weird and interesting story. Speaking of interesting, let's talk about YouTube for a second. So YouTube temporarily is gonna be giving you standard definition videos by default. So this is, of course, to save bandwidth because bandwidth is under attack right now. All these sites are getting hit hard. People are just at home chilling. So, they got to do something to conserve bandwidth. So by default, it's going to be set to standard definition. You can always go in there and change it manually to higher quality. But I don't think a lot of people that are watching YouTube content, especially on a phone or a tablet, will probably even notice if it's on standard definition. So this probably will, in turn, save a lot of bandwidth for YouTube and allow people to keep enjoying the service. So I can understand, during this period of heavy usage, to kind of scale down the content a little bit so everybody can enjoy and there's not any issues with the site. I think a lot of other sites are probably going to follow through shortly and probably do similar things. So expect this to come out even more very soon from your favorite streaming services, whatever it is that you may use. But I know what you're thinking. You're like, Mike, I'm tired of streaming. What can I do on my MacBook that I haven't done before? Well, there's good news. It's good news for you MacBook owners and Mac owners in general, because Apple graciously has extended their free trials of Logic Pro and whatever their video editing software is. Final Cut, yes, that's it. Final Cut Pro. They've extended those trials from 30 days to 90 days. So now if you're bored, you can just go in there, make a few songs, edit a few videos. It doesn't matter if you're into it or not. Why not give it a try? It's free for 90 days. Honestly, I was thinking about trying it, but I'm not going to go back to my Mac for video editing. I did a whole video on upgrading my computer, my Windows computer. Plus, I like having a program that I can use on Mac and Windows. So if I did go with a paid program, I probably would go with Premiere. But yeah, right now I'm using the free version of DaVinci Resolve, and I've been very happy with it. It does everything that I need. So I'm cool. I'm not going to personally try it, but there's no harm in a free trial, especially for 90 days. That's a pretty long time. They're trying to suck you in. Don't fall for it. Try, but don't buy. I'm just kidding. If you want it, then whatever. But yeah, if you've been curious about it, this is a good time to try it. Speaking of try it, a few weeks ago I tried GeForce Now, and I actually like the service a lot. But there's been a lot that's happened with GeForce Now in that time period that I haven't talked about, so let's talk about it. So a lot of games have been removed from GeForce Now, even though it's been in beta for years, and all these publishers were fine with the games being up there up until this point. But like Activision pulled out and Bethesda, to name two of the bigger companies. And they're basically like, yeah, we're not cool with this. We're removing our games from your service. It's been going kind of downhill since then. The weird thing about it is all GeForce Now is doing is basically letting you run or use one of their virtual machines from their servers to run the game on Steam or on the Epic Store, whichever platform you use. Like, you literally launch the game and you sign in through Steam, and that's pretty much it, or through the Epic Store, and then you launch the game. It's like giving you access to the games that you already have. So there's an argument on both sides, I believe. Like, on the Nvidia side is like, well, they're not even selling the games, they're selling access to their servers for stuff that people already own. But then on the publisher side, right, there's kind of like, well, they are advertising, having the ability to play these games when you subscribe to their service. So there is a $5 a month tier, and there's also a free tier. So it's kind of like a push and pulls. Like, I can understand where the developers are coming from. It's like, hey, you're kind of using our games to advertise your service. We're not getting any money from it. But at the same time, Nvidia is not actually selling any games. They're just selling access to their computers to run games that you already bought through other services. Anyway, Nvidia's been, whenever the developer's like, hey, we want out of it, they just pull access to the games from their store. That's what's been going on. And that's what brings us to this story. So Control is the main game, and a few other smaller games have been added to GeForce Now. So even though there have been some companies that have pulled out, they're still getting some new games. I still think that it's an exciting service because it's utilizing games that you already own, and that's what I liked about it. I haven't tried Google service because they're still kind of in that early access period. You have to buy the whole kit. When the free tier becomes available, and it's available on devices that I own, because I'm not going to get their controller and Chromecast Ultra, then I'd be more than willing to try it. But at the same time, I don't like the idea of buying a game that you can only play on a streaming service. Like, GeForce Now to me makes a lot more sense, because even if I'm paying for GeForce Now, I'm paying just to play a game that I already own, and I can still play it locally on my computer when I'm at home. So to me, it makes sense. So hopefully Nvidia can work these things out and continue to build their service, kind of, work out some kind of deal with these companies. But for now, yay, Control. Control. Speaking of Control, in our final story, AMD lost control of some important information related to GPU architecture, including the architecture of the upcoming Xbox Series X, as a hacker somehow got a hold of it and apparently leaked it online. But it was quickly taken down. But yeah, that totally happened. So they got access to information about the Navi 10 architecture, which is what their current GPUs, like the 5700, is based off of, the upcoming Navi 21 architecture for some of their future GPUs, and then the Arden architecture for the Xbox Series X. So Nvidia claims that none of the information that got out is going to pose a security risk or basically give up any trade secrets, like affect their competitiveness. So they're not really worried about it, and they are filing a criminal case against the person that stole the information. But it is interesting, like with these leaks, some of the information that gets out there is crazy. I mean, I haven't heard anything about the information that was leaked, like it was like any kind of crazy reveal. I mean, and then on top of that, as far as the Xbox side of it, they've kind of gotten out there and already said what their GPU does. So it's not like, I don't think there's much more information to parse out from, honestly, Microsoft or Sony at this point, because they've gotten out there and given us all the specs. Like personally, at this point, I just want to see some games and see the graphical differences. So if this person did steal the information and they're like, oh, here's more information about the architecture, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to see the games. Like at this point, we're ready to see the games. And I don't, like I said, I don't think it will affect Microsoft's launch at all. Well, they said that it's not going to pose any issue or delay for the Xbox launch. That's what AMD came out and said, and I don't see why it would. Like I said, unless they got some kind of information that could create a vulnerability that allowed people to access the system somehow, then I don't really see this as being that big of a deal, except for the fact that that information got out. Like they need to tighten up their security. Gotta tighten that up. I don't know what you're doing, AMD. Tighten it up. Speaking of tightening it up, I'm gonna tighten up this episode and bring it to a conclusion that didn't make any sense. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and always do at least 2 things at the same time. We out.